Hello, everyone. Welcome to Weekends with Amit. And in this week, we will continue with our last week's topic. Now, coronavirus is raging all over the world, and we have got a very nice viewing experience from some of our audiences. People have written back to us that they have learned certain things from that particular episode. I'm sure some of you would have picked up the same, and we will continue what we had given last week with again our panelists, Dr. Amit Goswami and Dr. Valentina Onisor. So, if we can have both of them on the screen, please. Welcome. And we are eagerly looking forward to what you would like to add in this episode on the subject. Now, before we get into what you would be interested in saying, there is a very pertinent question from one of our viewers. And the question is, if consciousness has created something, or rather everything, my mistake, if consciousness has created everything, then did consciousness create coronavirus as well? And I would like to ask this to Dr. Goswami.
This is a very, very good question. So it is also, the answer is subtle, so please listen carefully. The principle consciousness creates everything. That is true because nothing happens as our experience in the human brain or any creature without consciousness collapsing the waves of possibility into actual events. So, in that sense, consciousness must create everything. But of course, there's a caveat, and this is where the subtlety comes in. Consciousness also needs to have, the science of consciousness does not work unless we also have a feature which produces conditioned behavior, a kind of forgetfulness to consciousness. If consciousness did not forget by becoming conditioned, and that could be in the form of the lowest animals to all the way to human beings. All of us have one common characteristic. We have memories, that's part of the collapse process, and memories create conditioning. So, what happens then? In this conditioned state, we do not have the power to choose except from the conditioned alternatives. Now, who is choosing as us? It's still consciousness, but consciousness willfully, of necessity, of its experiential world, the way evolution can take place in a proper way, balance between creativity and conditioning, because both are needed for creative exploration of the possibilities of consciousness to manifest. It's very cleverly, very subtly done. So part of that rule is that when there is conditioning, consciousness goes along with it because it already has forgotten that its powers, that it can really always be creative. It's not going to open up to that until we, in the conditioned version, do something. Meditate, join the creative process. Unless we do that, we don't get back that power. So look at the situation. Consciousness willfully has submitted to this condition. And then in this condition, we do atrocious things like we are doing today. So yes, in the sense that we have done atrocious thing, conditioning action produce conditioned actions. Who knows? There's so many things. Global climate change is such a major thing. I would not be surprised if tomorrow I hear a bit of news that a body of scientists have concluded that this increase on the average temperature of the Earth has contributed to the explosion of so many of these kind of viruses that did not exist before. So it is possible, but we, in all complexity, we cannot answer such questions at this time with any positivity. It's all speculation. But yes, there is caveat in the quantum science that in the conditioned state, we choose ignorantly. And because of that ignorance, all kind of atrocities can happen. By the way, those of you who are puzzled why in God's world God is good, oneness consciousness is another name for God. And why does God let atrocious things happen, like a rape, like violence, murder, unnecessary murder, brutal murder? Why? Don't be surprised, because God is not doing it. It is God bound by conditioning and prejudices and ignorance, namely us, that are doing it. We cannot avoid the responsibility in being so stupid and so ignorant. And so, if you want to blame somebody, don't blame consciousness as the ground of being, blame ourselves. But don't never blame the other, because that would be false. We don't know whose stupidity caused it. It's everybody's stupidity. That's why we have to be careful. This is why blaming another person, etc., is not always very useful. Sometimes it is when somebody is directly killing somebody, of course, we have to control that, and therefore blaming is necessary. But otherwise, in a general thing like this, you cannot say, okay, Chinese did it because they have an authoritarian country, or India did it because there's the first virus, the Delta variant occurred, or somebody else did it because this is blah, blah, blah. No, don't do that. We cannot know and we do not know. It's a good thing that we do not know. Okay?
Thank you so much for this explanation. There is another question, or rather, another subject that you touched upon in the last episode, and you spoke about our immune system and love as something which can create deterrence to all these diseases that can be caused because of immune system dysfunction. So, can you elaborate on this a little, please?
Okay, this is a important question again. Very good question. Why does the immune system malfunction? This is really $1 million question, because so many things happen. Today we know so many diseases due to immune system malfunction, even maybe psychiatric diseases. So what is really the answer? We cannot know the complete answer. First of all, that must be acknowledged. But an answer that is emerging from quantum science is extremely poignant, very important. This we can do something about. This is the idea. We know that the brain needs a lot of rest. And we have a good suspicion, good reason to suspect that the reason is that there is a big job that the brain does, and it is not a mechanical job. It's a job of making a representation of consciousness itself. This is how we experience itself, through the brain. We are consciousness, but we experience our consciousness through the intermediary of the brain. And brain needs regular rest from that job. This is why we sleep at night. Okay? And so when it became clear that similarly, there is experiences at the heart and also at the navel chakra. So these two places in the body have similar experiences, and experiences could not occur without consciousness having an identity there, self-identity. So again, the same question: if there is a self-identity at the heart and at the navel, then these places must also need rest. Now, navel, we don't have to worry too much. Stomach is not always overworked unless people constantly eat. And you know those guidelines. Everybody already has discovered that you have to give considerable amount of time that you don't eat. And generally, people don't eat in their sleep. So there's a safeguard there. Immune system, on the other hand, is for some people, every waking moment, even during sleep, the immune system does not get to rest. It has to go on fighting with any intruder that is bothering it. Anything that is you have a reason for being defensive about. That me not me function is operative, and that works through the thymus gland in the heart. Or if you are an adult, then there is already immune system apparatus, not the thymus gland itself, that has taken the job of that. But this me not me function goes on, and that defensive program goes on. And this is a very dangerous situation, and the immune system becomes overworked and therefore starts to function. Now, therefore, the question naturally is, how do I suspend that function? It's also built into the science, and there is the real big news, wonderful news actually for those people who are already emphasizing how important love is. We all know all religion do agree on that one thing. Love is important to us. Love is important to human beings. Why? Now we know. Love is important because love is when the immune system is temporarily suspended. Researchers at very famous organization named Heart Math Institute have shown that the heart becomes quantum. Yes, the heart, that is a pump, it becomes coherent and quantum. Coherence of any organ cannot be explained unless you bring in quantum behavior. So when heart becomes quantum, what does that mean? That means that heart is collapsing experiences as a quantum self. And therefore, when we love, immune system is suspended. This is the key. So if we love, if love is present in an ongoing way, then immune system is indeed suspended, and this is why there is much less 50% incident of coronavirus in 50% less in women than men. And in general, if you love, cancer, heart disease, this immune system malfunctions don't happen. If there is love in life, people who have a happy marriage, for example, they live longer. So everything, all this data suggests that it is very important to have love in our life. Thank you.
No, there would be a follow-up question probably from some of our viewers that during the period when this immune system is suspended, are we more prone to get infections and other stuff because it is not working, or is there something else?
Yeah, this is of course a natural question because whenever I explain, I get too carried away. No, this suspension immune system is not continuous thing. It's just momentary. Just as your love experience is momentary. Have you noticed? You love 1 minute and then in the next minute your mood changes and you can be quite hostile or you can be quite indifferent. So that's the saving grace, that we cannot continuously love, and therefore the immune system does not get rest in a continuous way, and therefore a virus enters when the immune system is not doing anything. No, nothing to worry. It is just momentary experiences that we have. We feel love, and that is all we need. But in an ongoing way. We don't need just one experience of love episode. You saw a person and you were exuberant, and the rest of the time you are miserable. No, that won't work. You have to have an ongoing presence of love in your life, and that will give the immune system sufficient rest. All these little episodes add up, and that's what does it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Now, talking about these viruses and stuff, I would like to ask Dr. Onisar that what would be your view? We have talked about pandemic and coronavirus in the last episode some, but what would your expanded view on this?
All right. So I saw also a question, interesting, if do viruses exist? So I'm not going to explain that fully, but just to give you some food for thought. Also something which Amit mentioned last episode, about Dr. Hammer and new German medicine. According to Dr. Hammer, no real diseases exist. Rather, what established medicine calls a disease is actually a special, meaningful program of nature, Sinnvolles biologisches Sonderprogramm in German. to which even bacteria, viruses, and fungi belong. So following a conflict, we adapt to survive, so various systems develop new functions. And all these unprocessed fears and negative emotional brain circuits, even apathy, shame, guilt, pride, all these generate biological adaptations. Okay, so think about that, first of all, and then see again what's happening now with all these possible programs which are creating and conflicts. If we continue to feed on all the fears, on the loneliness, all the anxiety generating. And I have to say that unfortunately I saw that the level of intelligence, even of doctors, is decreasing in these kind of situations. So once again, what is the coronavirus reminder of? Again, the thing that we must shift our attitude towards health and well-being. And of course, in the health profession, of course, you see so many types of diseases, so many names, and just one for the state of health. And of course, when you're in the middle of the panic and anxiety and disease, even, how can you think of health? And again, also what I mentioned is that there are both physical, vital, and mental, emotional aspects of our problems with generally viruses, okay? And there are preventive measures, again, which are not so much emphasized, unfortunately. So what possibilities can you choose to keep yourself physically, emotionally, mentally healthy at this time? For me, this would be something to think about. Apart from the hygiene methods, which again, it shouldn't be so exaggerated, I would say. Yeah. And again, I want to just start a little bit about mentioning the fact that we need to put ourselves together. I see around in many countries, I can travel these times, and I see levels of anxiety and depression, and we have to be very vigilant of our moods and also aware of these conflicts which can generate programs and consequences. So first of all, for me, this is the problem which I'm looking at. And the solution to all of this is at the spiritual level, I would say. You can start, of course, at the physical level, and gradually still it's a signal of integration. So also when you think of quantum healing, which I don't know, we'll speak now or later, you understand that the quantum healing, there are stages of preparation for that, and eventually it's a leap of consciousness, a manifestation from the supramental level of our being, and we need to learn how to access these levels, and best we do when we are healthy. Otherwise, when we are sick or we have any great disturbance, it's not going to be the same easy, okay? And again, I said about applying gratitude, to make a list every day, truly, even when the things don't go so well, but you will be very surprised how that will really shift your inner state. There are many, many things for which we can truly be grateful right now, okay? So, of course, also prayer. There are many, many practices related to quantum healing, and again, we'll talk about them later on. But I don't know, Krishanu, if you want, so I can start from some preventive things and also some things which can be applied.
Absolutely. A lot of people would like to know what exactly to do, the practical part of it, which will immediately get them some results.
Hope so. So once again, I just will to say that the inner state you need to treat as your priority, and also your relation with God. So and eventually get to a state, an inner state that cannot be altered through the actions, whatever happens around you. Don't stay with your head truly in the TV. So sometimes the preventive medicine is to just throw away that TV. I'm sorry to say, yeah. But also you need to have a method and something to follow, right? And of course that archetype, dharma, and everything. But you need to have something so that you improve constantly that inner state and get to optimize your life. Very simply put, okay. And also to form groups and connections, even if some of them now it's only online, but still meaningful discussions, to have there. So you will feel it. I was very surprised to see that it's still possible online to even create this kind of groups and connection, which with a lot of meaning into that and exchange. So very interesting. So to create these kind of structures and not accept the fact that your life would be dominated by that despair, which is nowadays you see so much in the world. All right. So after that is taken care, there are all kinds of precautions which you can take, and of course you need to see all of the factors which may alter your immunity. Of course, love would be the best preventive thing there to increase the immunity. But then there are all kinds of other factors, even the 5G technologies. There are tons of studies about the electromagnetic fields, especially targeting the heart and the brain and the overall immunity related to this 5G technology. So get more information about that. And so there are strengthening methods for strengthening the immune system. And usually there is not so much theory of what makes the immune system and other organs function, but naturopathy and Ayurvedic physicians have these theories, and quantum science is giving a scientific base for this thinking. So I'll just give you briefly some examples. I mean, what I'm also doing and other people, and we have no problem. On the contrary, it's like we feel even stronger these days. So, for example, you can do gargle with warm salt water and even do nasiya with this kind of water, especially if you're traveling or if you have any kind of contacts that you may feel that somebody was fully coughing around you or whatnot. But even if you do it on a daily basis, morning and evening, actually it's a practice which is done in the yoga schools. So that's a wonderful one, and it's cheap, some salt and some water. So remember that, gargle with very salty water if it's anything related with your throat, or in the nose, not so salty. Then you can do also oil pulling, mouthful of oil, swishing, gargling, which will help to destroy eventually the viruses, which first of all, they remain in the mouth and throat. So if you do that daily, you may keep yourself well. Then there are all kinds of spices which are used, especially in India, but not only. Even people who are drinking green or tea or spices, ginger, black pepper, clove, cinnamon. Of course, turmeric, ginger, cloves again. Boil in water if you want. Even add lemon juice, that would help. There are all kinds of probiotics and vitamins, D, C, E, A, zinc, of course. And Ayurvedic preparations, if you can find herbs like ashwagandha, giloy, tulsi, which is the Indian basil, or others, but this will be available maybe in other countries as well. And one more thing which is extremely healthy, which I would recommend, is bee products. For example, a spoon of propolis is stimulating the antiviral immunity in mucous membranes. So kind of if you want the best thing, you mix a perfectly natural honey, for example, manuka, but not only, with the fresh bee pollen, royal jelly, and liquid propolis, so that would be a combination, which is like a bomb protection for your immunity. You can even take it daily. Then, of course, there's echinacea, ginseng, zinc, as I mentioned, garlic, ginger, onion, drinking warm water, warm soups, even sauna, and again, the gargle, or even gargle with propolis tincture if it's more serious. Of course, pay attention to your digestion. Yeah, avoid constipation, which may appear due to fear. And as I don't know if Amit mentioned now or not, but the immunity, of course, has to do also with this area. So the third chakra, Manipura chakra, or the abdominal brain, together with the heart area. So this would be what you're thinking of the immunity. And of course, having a good digestion is also essential, also for a happy life, but also related to your immunity. And the regular fasting would help also. Another thing, you can add melatonin, especially in the night, but not only. Some people are adding melatonin even more. That again will stimulate your natural immunity. And using colloidal silver and gold, if you know about these kind of things. And I'm also very fond of aromatherapy. There are all kind of it's a lot to talk about the principles in aromatherapy, but if you have at hand therapeutic grade essential oils like peppermint, eucalyptus, basil, tea tree, lemon, lavender, rosemary, I would recommend to use them to inhale. And then again, some of them you can even use internally if they are truly pure. Okay, then another thing which is excellent is to integrate natural foods that contain vitamin C. even 3 times per day. For example, 1 full spoon of acerola, or adding fresh lemon juice to your water, for example, get used with that. And add natural foods that contains vitamin D. Of course, also use the sunlight, a little bit, not too much. And so vitamin D and also selenium to your diet. Then there are also remedies in homeopathy which work. I had patients with all of these things. I use them on many people and myself as well. So in homeopathy, the recommendation would be the remedy which is called arsenic album. You start with the concentration, small concentration, but still you need of course, for all this, it will be good if you have natural therapist or homeopathist or whatever, to work with you to see exactly what you need. That's just general recommendation. Other homeopaths use the remedy which is called camphora, but again, I recommend you to check that because it's more delicate realm, the homeopathic. Also, the Chinese researchers discovered that high doses of vitamin C, which can be given orally or intravenously, can inhibit the production of inflammasomes. Yeah, so there's research about this, about combination of herbs, also in the Chinese medicine, like andrographis, if you know about this, and astramil as prevention, as treatment as well. And then, so this would be just a few ideas to use. But again, I would say that first of all, still see what's happening at the mental level and spiritual, and afterwards think about this kind of prevention. You need to take care, of course, the throat chakra organs, yeah, because if you think of the how it works, it's of course it's entering through the throat chakra organs, the mucous membranes of the nose especially, and the vital energy is gobbled up by the virus. They are inhibiting certain gene activation and promotes others in the organ affected. And then it appears this production of inflammatory molecules, inflammasomes, which are called NLPR3 in the nasal area. So, and then eventually this, what you heard, cytokine storm, when the inflammatory molecule cytokine wreaks havoc to the mucus lining on the lungs, causing this acute respiratory distress syndrome. A lot to talk about that. But for example, even humming has been found to be an effective remedy against this kind of inflammation. So you humming, especially humming with love songs, for example, and being conscious about this energy in the throat chakra. Yeah. And then again, there are more aspects to deal in the quantum style, on the quantum healing. Cristiano, up to what you want now.
Yeah, we are about to end this episode due to lack of time. So maybe Dr. Goswami would like to do some parting comment.
Okay, thank you, Krishanu. Yeah, I'll just add one thing. That was masterful, Valentina. I'll just add one thing that, of course, you do all this as even preventive. But one thing that one has to remember, this is the major defect of how allopathic practitioners neglect the health of people, which is that they never think of the aftermath, or they think very little about the aftermath. There is no care system. The insurance will refuse to pay for example, anything that doctors prescribe for the aftermath unless it is accepted by the whole community and so forth. So the whole medical system neglects the aftermath of a disease. But look at the disease from a new science point of view. What happens is that every disease that occurs due to virus or bacteria, which is a physical disease, agreed that it has to be taken care of the physical level first. But after the physical cure, what has happened? The system, the hardware, is not matching the software, because the hardware has changed by all this wear and tear that went on. It's a huge change, no? So the hardware is not, because the symptoms have gone away. That does not mean that the hardware is exactly like it was before, right? So the software does not match. And so the software has to be brought into matching, that harmony that Valentina mentioned. That harmony has to be obtained. And that requires alternative medicine treatment. So continue treatment with all those things that Valentina said. They are very important also in the aftermath. It is best to go to a homeopathic or Ayurvedic or traditional Chinese medicine practitioner to get hints. It is best if you come up with a quantum health consultant, health management expert that we are creating at our university. Then you can get direct help. We are actually going to produce a helpline very soon, but we have not gone to that level yet, where we can help with such things and that's what to do more than the traditional experts can tell you in terms of taking care of exactly such things, of how to establish harmony between software and hardware in the aftermath of a major disease like serious coronavirus or hospitalization was necessary. Okay, so just remember that. That's a very good thing. Next week, we'll deal with quantum healing and all kinds of very wonderful avant-garde stuff that quantum science has brought to our fore before us. And we'll also talk about exercises and stuff like pranayama, qigong, and many other that Valentina is establishing in the form of quantum yoga, which is just wonderful. I have to beat the drum for her because she refuses to do it herself. But this is a wonderful program that combines yoga, uh, pranayama especially, but also meditation and even movement of vital energy that qigong practice does. So, all that we'll discuss next week. Thank you.
Great, great. It was indeed a very nice and informative show where our audience will really, really be benefited directly by the examples and the explanations that Dr. Anisor gave on the precautions that can be taken. And one other thing, I was listening to it and I was saying, oh, all these things are very easily available. It's not that we'll have to go here and there and find them. So they are right there and they are very easy to use and they can help us enormously. So intelligence suggests that everyone should go for it and make sure that their immune system is much more powerful and the probability of the infections and any other disease for that matter comes down drastically. Thank you so much for explaining this. We'll be looking forward to our next week's episode, and I'm sure there will be much more material for our viewers to take home. Thank you so much again, and to our audience, see you next week.